Most Americans walking down the street and going into Dave and Buster's or Uno's restaurant don't really think they're actual slaves or prisoners to really anything significant, unless they're in a physical cage, or in chains, or forced to do work for some taskmaster, or to maybe armed city officials in cop uniforms. If that stuff ain't happening, well, then they think they're essentially free. Even if they're tied to some things and aggravations, and life is sometimes hard, they don't think they're actual slaves, per se. There's no gun or sword to their backs, physically forcing them to do anything, with freedom of movement taken away. So, despite problems, they're free people, in a free country. America is, after all, quote, the land of the free. And Bill O'Reilly will tell you that America is the land of opportunity, blah blah. There are no metal bars or handcuffs. You have freedom of choice. So the average person is not a slave, no matter what financial problem or situation he or she may be in. But that is wrong, ignorant, and dangerous thinking. If you think that slavery only involves whips and shackles, you need to rethink that narrow view of things, sonny. People in the world are pathetically and depressingly in symbolic, but real shackles from birth onward. Check this out. In the Judeo-Christian scriptures, doctrines, and traditions, all humans are slaves to sin, corruption, and death, right from conception, right from the Father's loins. Adamic sin and ruin. That's one interesting and compelling way to view things, and fascinating. On a more secular and temporal level, humans are subject to flawed human rulerships, economies, and governments, and bankers. People think they're free, when the hard truth is that no one in this world is totally free. Everyone on the planet is a slave. And people's ignorance and blindness make the matter worse. As Johann Wolfgang von Goethe said, in famous words, one dictionary definition of a slave is, quote, one that is completely subservient to a dominating influence. That's a good definition of it. Think about it. Today, millions of Americans are slaves of the system, and they don't even realize it. Debt is a form of slavery, and millions of Americans have become deeply enslaved to our debt-based financial system. When someone enslaves someone else, the goal of the master is to reap a benefit out of the slave. You don't want the slave to just sit there and collect dust, but you're using that person by force or coercion with no intention of paying him much, if anything. Today, most Americans have willingly shackled themselves to a system that systematically drains their wealth and transfers it to the very wealthy. Most of them don't even realize that they have been enslaved, even as the system sucks them dry. Just think about it. Where is the, quote, big money in the United States today? You know, like, where is a lot of it? When asked that question, most Americans think of a place like Wall Street. Okay? Well, then who controls Wall Street? The bankers do. The borrower is the servant of the lender. I'll say that again. The borrower is the servant, the bond servant of the lender. He becomes a slave to the lender, and the lender generates massive amounts of wealth by lending us money. Okay, an example might help. Have you ever run up $5,000 of credit card debt? Many people have run up a lot more than that, man. Okay, but let's use $5,000 for our example here, alright? According to the Federal Reserve, and by the way, look that up on Wikipedia and on YouTube, what the Federal Reserve is and is all about, okay? In a nutshell, the Federal Reserve is the central banking system of the United States of America. It was created on December 23rd, 1913, with the enactment of the Federal Reserve Act, largely in response to a series of financial panics, particularly a severe panic in 1907. And it's greedy and wicked because the Federal Reserve was created as a way to enslave the U.S. government with debt. Also, the Federal Reserve creates money out of thin air. And Wall Street and the New York banks in many ways are run by the Federal Reserve, and vice versa. They're in bed together. And ultimately, the Federal Reserve is not really accountable to anyone, and that's dangerous. Okay, anyway, according to the Federal Reserve, and they would know, since they created, maintain, manipulate, and control a lot of this craziness, so they know what's going on. Okay, according to the Fed and other experts in the field, if you only make the minimum payment every month, at say 20% interest rate, it will take you 49 years to pay that credit card off, and you will pay back well over $26,000. Okay, so analyze that travesty for a minute. You would have gotten the original benefit of spending the $5,000, okay? And then you would have had to work extremely hard to pay back an additional over $21,000 to the bankers. In essence, you would be working as a servant of the bankers until you had paid back that entire debt plus interest. Lots and lots and lots of interest charges. Unfortunately, our entire system is now designed to get you into debt. The bloodsuckers want you in debt. It starts before we even get into the quote real world. We're constantly told that we cannot get a quote good job without a college degree. But a college education is so ridiculously and horribly expensive these days that most of us cannot afford one without going into lots of debt. Wow, so the quote you must go to at least 4-year college propaganda and Bill O'Reilly's blatherings and constant rhetoric will have the average person in debt even before that average person reaches 25. Come on, many of you know what I'm talking about. Do you have a pile of student loan debt? Many in America do. In fact, the total pile of student loan debt in the United States is now over $1 trillion. Try to wrap your mind around that figure, okay? Over $1 trillion. Unfortunately, when a lot of us graduated, we found out that the quote good jobs that we were promised simply were not there, despite what Bill O'Reilly tells us. In 2012, 53% of all Americans with a bachelor's degree under the age of 25 were either unemployed or underemployed. So yeah, you may get a job more likely if you graduated college, but many of them are crappy jobs, not even close to the level of what you trained for in expensive colleges. So many young adults are starting out life already enslaved to a gigantic pile of debt, but without a good job that will enable them to comfortably service that debt. The really quote lucky graduates from the top schools flock to Wall Street so that they can make lots of money running the debt-based financial system that is enslaving all the rest of us. Anyway, once young people leave school, there are lots of other, quote, debt traps to fall into. Once you get out into the, quote, real world, just about every major purchase is going to involve another pile of debt. You want a house? Yeah, you'll get some nice debt there. Research shows that mortgage debt as a percentage of US GDP has more than tripled since 1955. You want a car? Most people want or need an automobile. About 70% of all vehicle purchases in the US now involve at least some borrowed money. The majority of cars bought incur financial debt to the new owners. Consumer debt is particularly treacherous. Our stores are filled with very beautiful things, and it is really easy to buy a bunch of stuff and, quote, put it on plastic, credit cards. Since 1971 to 2013, the total amount of consumer debt in the United States has increased by 1,700%. Okay, that's 100 times 17. 1,700%. About 50% of all Americans now carry a credit card balance from month to month to month to month. About half the country constantly paying credit card debt as if it's their regular house bills like lighting, rent, oil, gas, food, etc. Americans just keep plunging themselves deeper and deeper into debt slavery. Most Americans never seem to learn. Over the past 30 years, those of us in the, quote, bottom 95% or whatever, have seen our financial shackles just get heavier and heavier. The following is from a recent CNN article. In 1983, the bottom 95% had 62 cents of debt for every dollar they earned, according to research by two International Monetary Fund economists. But by 2007, the ratio had soared to $1.48 of debt for every $1 in earnings. They went past the zero mark. That's really in the red, man. When you pile up lots of debt, you aren't just working for yourself anymore. You are also working for those that you owe the debts to. Your hard work, blood, and sweat end up making them a lot richer. Those financially rich, greedy vampires just keep sucking and sucking your blood dry to their further enrichment, riding on their yachts on other people's life savings.